Hey everyone, Mike Miller with the Herald Times, coming to you from Don Fisher's radio booth here at Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, California, home of the Foster Farms Bowl, home of Indiana's second straight bowl game. This one obviously ended in similarly frustrating fashion as the last one, a 26-24 loss to Utah. Utah, a pretty darn good team, but Indiana was right there with them. Really, the story here was the story we've kind of come to you and spoken with in many Scoop Talks previously. Uneven offense, some special team shortcomings, namely a missed field goal late that would have put Indiana up by 4. Meanwhile, Indiana's defense played pretty darn well. Struggled at times against Utah running back Joe Williams, who was apparently really sick last night heading into this game, but came out today, ran for 222 yards. He was huge on Utah's final drive that set up I believe, 27-yard field goal by Andy Phillips that actually proved to be the game winner. But by and large, it was a really solid Indiana defensive performance, one that featured a lot of winning plays. I think they had 5 takeaways, 4 forced fumbles, if I'm not mistaken, and 1 interception by Rashard Fant. So, kind of the season all just encapsulated into one game right here. Just really an offense that never really clicked, never really found its rhythm. And you pair that with a defense and that played well, and again some special teams blunders, namely that missed field goal, which was pretty darn big. And you got this 26-24 loss. Stick with defense for a moment. Tigre Scales was recognized as the defensive player of this game. I think he had something 10 tackles, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss. Just another really strong game. And it was huge. It was huge, especially because they didn't have Marcus Oliver today. Marcus Oliver was out with an undisclosed injury. Tom Allen said it was something that had been nagging him all season long, and frankly, it's that guy is always banged up. He's always one of the last guys to leave the locker room after games. He's always wrapped in ice, just kind of taking care of different things. But apparently he had something. We were not really hadn't heard anything about any injury that was going to keep him out of this game. But he didn't dress. Ashawn Riggins, the boundary corner, didn't dress, didn't play. So those right there were two pretty big losses for this Indiana team. I thought Damian Willis actually played pretty well in Oliver's place. Obviously, he had Scales, who was outstanding, and just defense as a whole. I mentioned the special teams moments ago, but that's kind of what gave Indiana its initial jolt. Is coming down the field in the opening kickoff. Greg Gooch forces a fumble, and I believe it was top of my head, I believe it was Tyler Green who recovered it. And Tyler Green was starting in place of Riggins. Let me double check that because I just want to make sure that's correct. Donovan Hale. Tyler Green was involved in another fumble play later in the game, but Donovan Hale recovered that initial forced fumble there by Greg Gooch and set up Indiana for I believe it was a 3-play drive that ended with, I think it was a 7-yard touchdown pass from Richard Lego to Mitchell Page. One of the very few bright spots for Richard Lego in this Indiana offense today. Again, just it was a struggle and affair for him. He was intercepted once on a ball that it was a very poor decision to throw that ball where he did. Underthrew it into double coverage, looking for Ricky Jones deep down the sideline, picked off. Again, some of the shorter, just the check down passes, some of the slants and screens, just didn't have a lot of accuracy on some of those rather elementary throws. Something we've seen from him at times this year. Obviously, the guy has a great arm, great potential with that arm, but once again, much like this season, struggled to really put it together in a really constructive, complete way. And to be fair, on a day where you look at the stat line, he completed only 14 of his 39 throws. Counted about 5 or so drops by Indiana receivers. So even in moments when Indiana needed some help and Richard Lego needed some help, he didn't really get it from some of his guys in that receiving corps today. One of the big jolts, and this is probably going to be something we're going to be talking about, was Xander Diamont came in late in the second quarter, and I think he got 3 plays. One was a handoff to Ricky Brookins, one was a keeper for himself, and the other was a 36-yard touchdown pass to Nick Westbrook. Really great catch by Westbrook. Diamont put it where he needed to put it, and it went for a touchdown that tied the game at 17-17 going into halftime. Big play, big momentum swing for Indiana going into the locker room. And Diamont Diamant was Diamant right after he threw that. He was strutting down the field. Apparently that's something Conor McGregor does, but I don't watch a whole lot of UFC, so I didn't pick up on that. But yeah, that was the talk of the internet when he did that. Excuse me, Xander being Xander in ways only can wait. Oh man, it is late. Xander being Xander in ways only Xander can be. I don't know why I said that. You thought at some point in the second half, maybe somewhere in the third quarter, you might see Xander Diamant again. He didn't see the field the rest of the game. Asked Coach Tom Allen about that afterward. He basically, his reasoning was, yeah, they considered it. They considered putting Diamant back in the game because he just has that ability to give you that little boost. But Allen was saying that they play a lot of cover zero when Diamant's in the game, and just thought that, for all intents and purposes, that it was just best to stick with what they had in Lego and kind of try to establish some flow that way. So Diamant didn't see the field the rest of the way. Probably not too pleased by that. He tweeted after the game, offensive play calling or decision making, something like that, cost them the game. His dad, Don Diamant, also not too happy. But you can understand the frustration. I certainly thought, just kind of watching it myself, I thought, well, maybe here's a moment where you might want to see Xander. You might want to see just what he can do, because there's some juice he brings to the field, and it's very tangible. I'm sure the guys feel it down there. You watch the game, you see him out there just kind of running around, or just in there, just with his poise and moxie's a word we use a lot with him in 2014, but it's a real thing, and you thought that this was probably a game where you might see that come into play at some point in the second half, as Indiana's offense was still just kind of trying to get some legs underneath him. But lo and behold, it did not come to pass, and it was Richard Lego's game the rest of the way. Indiana did take a brief lead after Utah kicked a couple field goals in the third quarter. Went up 24-23 on a 3-yard run by Divine Redding. That drive was actually set up by a forced fumble. Gosh, I should have these things in front of me when I say them. You get the idea. You saw the game. But yeah, it was again, the defense was setting up the offense, just kind of giving Indiana its foundation again, and then right after that, Indiana's next drive was produced by another fumble recovery, and they get, I think, as far down as the Utah 23, send out Griffin Oaks for a 40-yard field goal attempt, which he missed. A lot of misses this year for Griffin Oaks, who again was coming off a season in which he was the Big Ten's kicker of the year, but consistency was just not there for him this year, and I know that's something that really it's going to have to be addressed in the offseason. So will some of Indiana's other shortcomings in special teams, which were just a huge, just frankly inexcusable storyline to the season. You had field goal protection, the punting was just not always there. Oaks just really struggled. So hold, there's a point when they couldn't even get consistent holding at the field goal in the field goal situation. So, and Tom Allen's a former special teams guy, and he swears by it. They're going to look at it. They're going to fix it. They're going to address it in the months to come. We'll see exactly how they do that. But again, something that we've said many times this year: special teams has to be better. There's no excuse for it to be this inconsistent, this consistently poor. And Allen's quote after the game was, usually, I've been coaching a long time, and usually the things that bite you during the season, they don't just disappear at the end, bowl game or not. And that was certainly the case today, as we saw with an offense that never really found its flow. The missed field goal, which at that point would have put Indiana up 28-23 and forced Utah obviously to go for a touchdown. So again, kind of the whole season wrapped up here in the finale. Tough way to go out for Indiana. Tough way for some of the seniors to leave. Dan Feeney, his final game will go down as one of the best players in program history. I'm sure he'll get a nice big painting on the west side of Memorial Stadium with all the rest of Indiana's All-Americans through the years, so that'll be probably going up soon. But this was his final game, and now we're going to have to watch. It could get pretty interesting here moving forward with some of these guys who are going to be considering the NFL draft. I think T. Scales is certainly a guy who will and should consider the NFL draft. Just an outstanding year for him. Rashard Fant has already said he's weighing that right now and should have something to announce, I guess, relatively soon now that the season's over. You could probably even throw Marcus Oliver into that conversation too. But by and large, when you look at this team next year, there's a lot to like. There's a lot to like. I mean, obviously they got to figure it out at the quarterback position. They just have to and that's just the offense as a whole too. We're not sure exactly what this is going to look like as far as staffing changes which could come. I mean, there's been it's been reported that what's his name? I'm one of the assistants at Ole Miss. I'm sorry, I don't have his name. I was just kind of thrown off the cuff here. That Tom Allen may look to bring in some new guys, which I don't think is surprising. It's kind of something that you should probably evaluate and recognize as you go through this transition. But we still don't know what the Tom Allen offense is going to look like. So a lot to figure out. But I mean, when you look at really the core of this team next year, it's going to be on that defensive side of the ball where if Scales is back, Oliver's back, Fant's back. Really, the only guy you're really losing from that regular rotation up front is Ralph Green. And they'll have obviously a recruiting class coming in that's really set to bolster them up front. And I like the way this team's going to be potentially constructed next season. So yeah, there's some questions, but they're positioned well to have another winning year, make it 3 straight bowl trips, and potentially end their drought in bowl victories, which has now reached I think 25 years. That 91 victory is the last postseason win for Indiana. Didn't get one here. Played well enough in at least defensively to compete and be there for it right at the end. But again, got to score points, got to protect the ball, got to make field goals. And it's a 40-yard field goal. It's not automatic, but big situation. Got to do it. Didn't do it today. 26-24 loss. That'll do it from here. So again, hey, thanks for all your readership, for watching these videos during the season. It's kind of strange we're wrapping it up now. Kind of go back to spring ball and really the entire month of August just kind of following this team along and seeing how they'd go. Weird year. Indiana's identity is now defense. They have a new coach. They could be pretty darn good next year. Just a very, very interesting year. We'll say that. But again, thank you guys for watching, for reading, for generally just sticking with us. Really means a lot. Really appreciate it. And we are leaving California and going back to Indiana, where Indiana basketball is going to be playing Louisville this weekend, and oh boy, basketball. That we will save that for a whole nother Scoop Talk. So, thanks guys, appreciate it.